Just a quick preface to the actual video. I am once again recovering from a chest infection. I know this only happened like 2 months ago, but here we are again! So apologies for the ragged voice. There are a few things synonymous with role-playing games. Fantastic worlds full of epic landscapes and incredible sights to see, deep and rich lore with loads of story and world building to uncover, huge and evil beasties that need to be smacked and slapped back to hell or wherever they came from. Today we are going to talk about an RPG staple, Magic. Specifically, the unique magic systems found in 10 separate games. Lots of games have some variety of magic systems, but these 10 games have very interesting spins on magic. Most games have a magic system that revolves around a magic point or MP pool. Each spell has a certain amount of MP to cast it, and if you don't have the MP, you can't cast it. Usually stronger spells use more MP. It's very simple stuff. Some games have the VIII magic system, which was first introduced in Dungeons & Dragons. A lot of people just refer to this as the D&D style of magic. This style gives you slots where you can memorize spells. As you level, you gain additional slots, and new levels unlock as well. Now that we have the spellcasting basics out of the way, let's get deep into RPG Fortress's top 10 most interesting magic systems. Disclaimer, interesting does not necessarily mean good. Final Fantasy VIII's Junction/Guardian Force system is what I call a ball ache. In order to use magic, you need to equip a magical creature called a Guardian Force. This Guardian Force, or GF, needs to have the magic command, and then that magic command needs to be equipped. Now, that doesn't actually give you access to the spells. That just gives you access to being able to draw spells. You now need to get into battle. Once in battle, you can draw spells from enemies, but only if they have spells. Not every enemy is obviously going to have every spell. You can then draw up to 100 of that spell and add it to your stock, kind of like a usable item. When you run out, you need to draw more, and you can usually only draw a couple at a time, so this leads you to spending loads of time in battle, not fighting, but essentially stealing magic spells that are more akin to one-use items. Needless to say, this was the last time a Final Fantasy game used this system. GFs are bad news. Phantasy Star IV doesn't have magic. This spacefaring swords and cybernetics classic has techniques and skills. The game explains that techniques and magic are different due to techniques being the product of evolution or something along those lines, whereas magic is fantastical in nature. But the game also explains that some skills are magic, so make up your mind, Phantasy Star IV. Techniques are similar to how magic works in most other games. Each technique costs X amount of TP from your TP pool, very much like how spells, MP, and an MP pool work. Skills are the D&D VIII style. If you have 5 uses of double slash, you can use double slash 5 times. Where the TP and skill system get wild is when they collide. Phantasy Star IV has combination attacks that both use techniques and skills. These are usually giant, screen-clearing, powerful attacks that involve multiple techniques and skills to be used in a certain order. A lot of people want to talk about combo attacks and their use in Chrono Trigger, but Phantasy Star IV had them 2 years before that game ever even came into being. Plus, this gives me the chance to talk about Phantasy Star IV again. I'm doing that thing that I like to do and treating Suikoden I and Suikoden II as 2 parts of the same game. They're just that ingrained in my brain like that. And both games have these same magic systems, so it's easy to talk about them both. Suikoden I and II have a magic system similar to the D&D VIII system, but with a little bit of a twist. Unlike D&D's 9 levels of spells, you have 4. As you gain levels, your spell levels will slowly increase. The difference here is that your spells will change depending on what rune you have equipped. If your character has the ability to use 4 level 1 spells, 3 level 2 spells, and 2 level 1 spells, you are not stuck with the spells you learn like in Final Fantasy I or D&D. You can swap out your rune and suddenly you have all new spells. Have a fire rune equipped but don't like the spells? Swap it out for a water rune. Think water runes are boring? They are. Swap it out for a lightning rune. This gives you some great options for spell casting, and with hundreds of characters to use between the two games, no two mages will ever be the same. Eye of the Beholder is an absolute dungeon crawler classic. One of SSI's gold box titles, this D&D adventure sees you rummaging through the sewers, dungeons, of Waterdeep. That's just a hop, skip, and jump away from Baldur's Gate. I really need to find the time to play through BG3. Eye of the Beholder being based on the advanced D&D rule set means you have traditional Vancian magic. You gain spell slots as you level up, and you can use each slot to memorize a spell. Simple. What makes it interesting though? Well, Eye of the Beholder is not turn-based, it's very much an action game. You walk around on a grid and attack, dodge, and cast spells in real time. Your magic users either use a tome, holy symbol, or scroll to cast spells. The fun thing about this is readying spells before combat, jumping out in front of an enemy, and letting the spell fly before going back into hiding. Stealth fireballs and lightning bolts in real time is hilarious and amazing. Speaking of dungeon crawlers, Legend of Grimrock I and II have a similar way of doing things, but instead of memorizing spells, you have this little magic grid thing. So first off, keep in mind that this game is real time, just like Eye of the Beholder, so you need to do all of this while walking around, dodging enemies and traps, and attacking. You have to right-click on your mage's hand or wand, that will pop up this little magic grid, and from there you have to click on the runes to activate the rune formula, which will in turn activate the spell. The grid has 9 runes, and each spell has 1 to 4 runes that need to be activated before the spell actually goes off. This is wild. On paper it sounds easy enough, but when you are surrounded by enemies on each side, you're dancing around traps, this becomes a bit of a nightmare. Let's take ibuprofen together. While maybe not 100% an RPG, Magicka is 100% RPG adjacent with a colorful fantasy setting, dorky little magic users, and a very unique magic system. In this quirky little adventure, you play as a cute hooded magic user. You have access to 8 types of magic: water, life, shield, cold, lightning, arcane, earth, and fire. Now remember 2 seconds ago when I said there were 8 elements? I lied, there's actually 10. There's the 8 I mentioned, plus 2 hidden ones, steam and ice. The 8 default elements are mapped to QWER and ASDF. Your spells are activated by hitting these elements in certain patterns. These patterns will create spells that you can unleash on your enemies. 1 earth and 1 fire creates a fireball, 1 arcane and 1 cold creates a ray of ice, 1 shield and 1 life gives you life resistance aura, and so on and so forth. It's a fun little system with loads to figure out, but having a cheat sheet nearby definitely helps. Phantasy Star III is the black sheep of the original Phantasy Star games. Sometimes it's not really warranted, the character designs are top tier, that's a good example, but sometimes it is warranted. The technique system is asinine. Each character starts off with all of their techniques already learned. Okay, you can then go to the technique redistribution shop in town and modify a colorful little grid which will strengthen some of your skills in sacrifice to the other skills. This sucks. This means that Anti, your poison cure spell, can miss if it's not maxed out. And nothing sounds less fun than getting poisoned and not being able to cure it because Anti keeps missing. Sorry PS3, sometimes you really do deserve the criticism that you get. Shining Force 2, My Bay, has a standard magic system. You gain new spells as you level, spells cost MP, you have a pool of magic points, etc, etc, etc. But there is one interesting thing about the magic in SF2 that I want to talk about. Specifically, I want to talk about your mages. You have 3 mages, Kazan, Tyron, and Chaz. Now, Chaz starts promoted, so pretend you're his dad and ignore him. Kazan and Tyron start unpromoted as mages, and their default promotion is wizard, like Chaz. But in the game, you can find a secret item in a secret village called a secret book, which will allow you to promote either Kazan or Tyron to a sorcerer instead of a wizard. This promotion item gives them access to sorcerer spells, which involves summoning deities, as opposed to your standard mage wizard spells. This is interesting as you only get one character, Taya, who is default as a sorcerer, so without the secret book, you will only have access to sorcerer spells through her if you manage to recruit her. This is interesting as SF2 is the only SF game with these promotion items. Along with the secret book, there are a handful of others for a few of your other classes. I would have loved to see the later games in the series have more items like this. Now, sorcerer spells are unique as they all hit the same cross grid of 5 spaces, but the more enemies they hit, the less damage they do. So when fighting hordes of monsters, sorcerer spells are not that useful, but using them to attack just one unit at a time, like bosses with loads of HP, their power is much more focused and can easily decimate bosses. It's a fun trade-off, but to be honest, I almost always just stick to Blaze 4. Oh no, please don't make me play like Crusader again. Okay, like Crusader is fine, I guess, but it does have another one of these weird mix and match magic systems that I want to talk about. So in Treasure's completely average and okay, not quite an action RPG dungeon crawler, you have a mere 4 types of magic. You've got wind, fire, earthquake, and heal. It's all pretty basic stuff, but from your pause menu you can mix and match 2, 3, or even all 4 spells. This gives you a much wider list of spells to choose from, and with a physical attack as useless as the one that you have in this game, you are going to need spells. Also, make sure you pack some green potions because you're gonna run out of magic fast. I recently fell in love with a little game called The Legend of Heroes: Trails in the Sky, and that wonderful little RPG has a bizarre little magic system. Each character has a propensity for magic, and this propensity can be expanded by visiting the Orbment dude in town. He can open more of your Orbment slots where you can put in quartz. These quartz will have immediate effects like boosting your strength or your defense, but you can also combine them to unlock spells. If you slot up the right elements, you will gain access to stronger spells. You have an in-game notebook full of cool bracer stuff, so you can always check on what quartz you need. If you don't have enough quartz, you can buy more, but you will need the right type of sepith, a type of currency that enemies drop. So just to recap, in order to gain spells, you need Sepith, which comes in 7 colors dropped by enemies. You use the Sepith to unlock a character's slots. You also use Sepith to purchase quartz that you can slot into your slots. And if you slot them in the right amount of slots in the right order, you gain spells. See? Easy. And those are 10 of the most interesting magic systems I have encountered. There are boatloads of RPGs out there, and I am sure I missed some really good ones. If you have any suggestions for the list, please leave a comment below. Also, please take a moment and like and subscribe. Thanks to our patrons, Aaron and Vexy. For RPG Fortress, I'm Richard. Thanks for watching, see you next time, and don't forget to hug a cat. Goodbye.